if we want to learn how to do all the things we've been doing with matrices, addition, subtraction, scalar multiplication, matrix multiplication, getting matrices into reduced row echelon form in order to solve a system of equations, all of those things can be done in the calculator. So first thing we would want to do is enter our matrices into the calculator. So the instructions are here. And I'm going to go ahead and enter matrix A and matrix B into the calculator. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to matrix, which is above my inverse button. So I actually have to hit second first and then that button. And then just to enter my data, I'm basically editing my matrices. So I want to arrow over to edit. And I would say it makes the most sense here to, since this is called A and this is called B, to let's just put them in the place of A, B, and later when we get C and D, put those in for C and D. So I'm going to go into matrix A to start, just hit enter. And I can see here that matrix A has 3 rows and it has 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. So this is a 3 by 4 matrix. So that would be the first thing I would put in, is I would put in 3 and then arrow over to the other dimension and put in 4. And I'll hit enter. And as soon as I do that, it changes the dimension of my matrix, the dimensions to 3 by 4. So I'm just going to enter in my data. If you want, you can arrow up or down, left or right, but if you hit enter, then you'll just do it a row at a time. So I'm going to put in 1, 2, make sure that you don't use the minus sign, that you actually use the negative sign when they're negative. So -2, 0, and then move on to my next row, 1, -1, 4, 3, and then my last row is 1, 2, 2, 3. And I'm going to go ahead and put in the other matrix as well. So I'm going to go back to matrix, second, and this button, and back over to edit my matrices. This time I'm going to go down to matrix B and hit enter. This one is 3 rows and 3 columns. So I'm going to enter the dimensions here as 3 by 3. Hit enter or arrow. And I'm just going to enter in these numbers: 0, -8, 4, 5, -4, -4, 2, and then those are just going to be left as zeros. So now I have my matrix A in the calculator and matrix B in the calculator. All right, so now I can start doing some operations with these. The first one it asked me to do is to do B times A. So I want to get back to my main screen. I'm just going to choose the quit option. So second, and this button will get me back to my main screen. And then I want to tell it to do this multiplication of matrix B times matrix A. So I'm going to go from the main screen. I'm going to go back into matrix. And this time I don't want to actually edit my matrices because they're already in the way I want them, but I just want to select the matrix I want to work with. So in this case, it's asking for B times A, which is not the same thing as A times B. So I'm going to choose from the list of matrices, I'm going to choose matrix B. And then that goes back to my main screen, and I'm just going to hit the multiplication button and then go back into matrix and choose matrix A. So there's B times A, and I'll hit enter, and that is my answer. So I'll just jot that down real quick. So now let me go ahead and do the next one, which is A plus B. So from my main screen, I'm going to go back to matrix. I'm going to select matrix A. I'm going to hit the plus sign button, and then back into matrix and select matrix B. So there's A plus B, and I'll hit enter, and I get an error message. So notice that my error here says dimension mismatch. And so this makes sense if we think about what we know about adding and subtracting matrices. We said before that in order to add and subtract matrices, they have to be the exact same dimensions. And in this case, A was a 3x4 and B is a 3x3. So you can see that's basically what it's saying here. So I would just write, in this case, no solution. And if it asks for an explanation, I would just say the dimensions don't match. So then the last one here is a scalar multiplication. So from my error message, I'm just going to tell it to quit. And I'm going to put in from the main screen -3 times, and then I'm going to go into matrix and find matrix B. I accidentally hit the inverse button, so let me redo that. -3 times, I have to hit second first, and then select matrix B and enter. I think I've made an error. Let me go to it and see what I did. Yeah, I had answer times -3, so I need to delete that part out. So just -3 times B is what it should look like, and enter. And that should be matrix B with all the values multiplied by -3. So I'll just jot that down. Okay, so finally, the last thing I want to do is I want to use my graphing calculator to solve a system of equations. So this is the system I want to solve. And we know that we can actually take a system like this and rewrite it in an augmented matrix. And once we do that, we can get that into what we call reduced row echelon form. And when you get it into reduced row echelon form, that basically solves it for you. So I'm going to first just write this as an augmented matrix. I'm just taking the coefficients on each of the variables. So this is really 1x. So this first row would be 1, +2, -2, and then that's equal to 0. My second row, the coefficient on x is 1, the coefficient on y is -1, the coefficient on z is 4, and that's equal to 3. And then my last row is going to be 1, 2, 2, 3. So that's my augmented matrix. And I want to go ahead and put that in my calculator, but if you look, this actually matches what we put in for matrix A earlier. So this is basically matrix A, and I've already got that in my calculator right now. All right, so that's in my calculator, and so now I want to get this into reduced row echelon form. Reduced row echelon by hand is a tedious process, but in the calculator, it's pretty simple. So all I'm going to do is from my main screen on my calculator, I'm going to go into matrix, so second, and then that button. And I want one of the matrix capabilities. So I'm actually going to go over to math. And what I'm looking for is reduced row echelon form, which is abbreviated. You're going to have to scroll a little bit, but eventually, so you don't want REF, you want RREF, right? You don't want just row echelon form, you want reduced row echelon form. So that's what RREF stands for. So I'm going to choose that option. And then I need to tell it which matrix I want it to find reduced row echelon form for. And so that was matrix A. So from here, while this is with the parentheses open, I'm going to go back into matrix and tell it that I want to do this for matrix A. So while A is selected, I'll just hit enter. And then I hit enter, and this is my answer. So that's in reduced row echelon form. It is pretty typical that you would want fractional answers, especially if your decimals aren't as nice as these, because you would prefer not to round. So what I would do in order to make sure that I have fractional answers is, while this is still the last thing on my screen and the last thing I've calculated, just go to math. And then the first thing in there will tell it to change it to a fraction. So I'm just going to hit enter on that and hit enter on my main screen, and it changes the whole thing so that there's fractions. So the reduced row echelon form of matrix A is this matrix 1, 0, 0, 1/2, 0, 1, 0, 1/2, 0, 0, 1, 3/4. And remember that the first item in each row is your X, the second item is your Y, the third is your Z, and then the augment is what it's equal to. So we can see that that first row of the matrix corresponds to 1X plus 0Y plus 0Z equals 1/2. Well, 0Y and 0Z, that's just 0. And 1X, that's just X. So this tells me that X equals 1/2. Similarly, the second row has a 0 for the X and a 0 for the Z. So it's really just telling me that 1Y or Y equals 1/2. And then on the last row, both X and Y are 0. So this is Z equals 3/4. So once it's in reduced row echelon form, we have the answer, the solution to this system of equations.